what is ELIF? As I say, ELIF is just to general introduction. It's just a series of events and a community we have of people regularly meeting together online, at least online, maybe in the future, maybe in person too, to share, exchange of ideas of local development in a wide sense. This is facilitated by AEIDL, but then no mean just an AEIDL space will not make sense otherwise. We cooperate into different topics. You'll see next slide, there will be, there's a part of territorial development, which is the issues that I mostly deal myself and my team and others beyond that in AEIDL. Which is today, I'm not going to explain more because we're going to discuss a lot of that today. There's another strand that is environment and climate. So we do a lot of work on sustainability, and that's because we work a lot on these topics, we would like to have an opportunity to share them more widely. And also, an AEIDL, and I will be explaining at the perhaps later as well, we have because strand on community-led social innovation. There's been even some activities and even some awards and competitions done through ELIF. So while ELIF is fundamentally a space for discussion, there's also space for interaction. I'll be having some explanation of that later. If we can crack of the agenda, as I say, we're going to go through from the reason why we're here today, because there's a consultation going on at the moment. In that respect, we will give first the floor to Diletta Zonta from the Right to Stay Secretariat in the European Commission. And then we'll move on to a view from one of the institutions, the European Parliament. I mean, a perspective, because the Parliament is big, but I think it's a very authorized person to do that. Then we'll move to, in this polyhedric approach we are doing to the question, the view for regions. There's a group of regions called the Demographic Change Region Network that's been working on this for years already. And Isabel from Castilla and León region is the coordinator, and very pleased to have you here. Then, inevitably, since we are all discussing this, and since AEIDL is very interested, well, we're going to have some pointers of the policy research we've been doing for this consultation, but also more widely. And I would like to then have some reactions, commentations from a number of projects that are very dear to us. Tina from RURBANIVE will speak more on the technological dimension or react to that from that perspective. Claudia, Luca from UNIBO and RURACTIVE Project, more social innovation aspect. And then Harris, as I said earlier in the pre-meeting, has been there all along and can provide us a bit of a Secretary General Local Development Network, LDnet, a wider perspective. There will be also some space for discussion as well there, plus very quick conclusions for myself and the ELIF team. Right. I think we are a lot of people. Let me move straight to the Right to Stay. I'm very pleased that Diletta Zonta, it's a very busy time for this consultation that is going on. Finishes tomorrow. We couldn't do earlier, and a bit right of the line. I know some people has been waiting for today's meeting to finalize their submission, so there's a great interest on this. I will say that to Diletta, I'm envying her a lot because it's a great groundbreaking opportunity to be in the driving seat of this. Also, it's a big responsibility. So in a way, it's a very enviable and unenviable position to be. And the consultation has, I believe, gathered a great interest. It's a novel concept. And I believe she will be, from the perspective of the Commission, provide us with a bit of a general understanding why this consultation is happening, what are the key elements, so that will help us structure the rest of the discussion. She will also take some questions at the end of her intervention. So without further ado, Diletta, the European Commission, the REGIO, team leader, Right to Stay strategy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Before I share my screen with you, let me say that I'm very happy to be here with you. And of course, I will tell you a little bit where the concept of the right to stay comes from the perspective of the European Commission, but it is true. And I think that you know very well that, Serafín, you also said it, you have been working on the right to stay for a long time. Maybe we haven't called it right to stay until now. There are many words for it. There are many perspectives to it. So what the Commission will try to do is to sort of bring all of these perspectives together. But clearly, I mean, this is a job that has been going on in practice on the ground, also thanks to you for a long time, and the Commission is aware of that. So from the perspective of the Commission, the right to stay concept comes from the political guidelines of this Commission's mandate, and more specifically, of course, from the mission letter of President von der Leyen to EVP Fitto, where she asked him to look at right to stay in terms of ensuring that communities have what they need, public services, private activities, education and skills, health, transport, digital connectivity. And the right to stay should first and foremost, of course, tackle regional disparities and also deliver place-based solutions to support, in particular, vulnerable regions. So this is basically the mandate of Executive Vice President Fitto when it comes to the right to stay. Of course, many of you know that the concept of the freedom to stay is very much inspired from Enrico Letta's report, Much More Than a Market, where basically Mr. Letta warns that if left unaddressed, territorial differences, regional differences could lead to a geography of discontent where citizens feel left behind. And clearly in areas where economic opportunities are lacking, access to essential services is often also inadequate. And in turn, it creates a vicious cycle where economic opportunities are further limited, and this may push people to leave and actually relocate. So what Mr. Letta says is that in order for the single market to be really complete, we need to ensure that the freedom of movement is accompanied at the same time by the freedom to stay. So the idea that internal mobility in the European Union remains a choice, actually, but not a necessity. So we also know, however, that the situation is very different across the European Union, and some regions, for example, are confronted with stagnant or declining growth and prosperity. And the Right to Stay initiative comes at a moment, we all know it, where our continent and beyond, of course, we're going through very important transformational pressures and challenges. These challenges are reshaping our economies, and they are affecting regions in different ways. So these persisting economic disparities, of course, bear many risks. It's threats to our sustainability, to the welfare systems, but also overall to the prosperity and the competitiveness of our continent. So today we have about 135 million people, so almost 1/3 of the EU population, that lives in places that have gradually fallen behind over the last 2 decades. So we all know it, where there are no job opportunities, people, and especially young people, often tend to be more mobile and leave these places. So here, just a couple of slides for you. These maps are taken from the previous, from the cohesion report, and they just give you a sense very quickly on the left-hand side that there are, of course, GDP differences at NUTS2 regional level, but the right-hand side map shows you that sometimes, actually very often, the regions that have a high GDP per capita are actually regions that have been stagnating economically for the past 2 decades. Other regions, or maybe sometimes even the same ones, they're also confronted with very acute demographic transformations. Our populations are aging. The youth is very mobile. We know it, but very often they also leave because they don't have opportunities where they are currently living. And the workforce population is also decreasing. 33% of the population today lives in a region that has lost population over the past 20 years. We know that more prosperous regions and cities also typically attract these populations. So there are still regions of destinations, but in the south and in the east of the European Union in particular, rural, remote regions, including, of course, islands, outermost regions, and eastern border regions, they do face greater risks of population loss. And outmigration is often worsened by natural demographic trends. The EU population has stopped growing and is also projected, we know it, to decline. So also this phenomenon of demographic change worsens labor shortages, increases pressures on our welfare systems, and so there is, of course, with the aging population, also greater demand for social and health services, and combined with demographic decline, it becomes more and more difficult for these services to be provided. So, what the right to stay strategies aims to is to reverse or support the trajectory towards reversing these trends. There are 4 dimensions that the right to stay strategy is going to look at. What you see here on the slide is very much of a simplification, but I can already say that there's going to be one dimension that it will be looking at competitiveness and SME support and economic growth. Another dimension that we can we'll be looking at human capital, employment, education, and skills. Another one is going to look at connectivity in the broader sense, so also transport, digital connectivity. And a fourth one that is going to look at access to essential services, but not only. Of course, we know that there's housing. We know that there's also public administration capacity, and in general, I would say I could add another dimension of the horizontal conditions that actually can serve as enablers to the policy dimensions to work. The strategy is also going to look at, of course, at the needs of and the challenges that territories and regions are currently facing. We're going to put forward the EU policies and programs and actions that can help deliver the right to stay. So in this sense, we're going to be looking beyond cohesion policy. Of course, I come from DG Region, so we know that cohesion policy plays already a very important role in delivering the right to stay, but we're going to be making an exercise beyond silos beyond the silos of one DG, and we're going to be looking at European Commission policies and support mechanisms. We're going to identify a number of solutions that already work on the ground, and of course, overall stress the fact that we need territorial solutions and place-based approaches and integrated strategies in order to deliver a number of policies on the ground. So from the perspective of the European Commission, of course, right to stay is an opportunity. It's an opportunity that requires, as Vice President Fitto already said on the 6th of May at the high-level event that actually officially launched the preparations, that it's an opportunity that requires, of course, the effort and the collaboration across the board. So, of course, among European institutions, and I'm very happy to be in the same meeting as a member of the European Parliament, but of course beyond and together with the stakeholders, of course. So as I was saying, it's a new concept, maybe it's a new word, but it's very much linked to the notion that we need balanced territorial development and cohesion. As I said, it requires, of course, a multi-level governance, place-based approaches. We know, and we have tried, of course, in the proposal for the national and regional partnership plans, so the new delivery mechanisms under the next multi-annual financial fund. In the proposal for the Commission, there is a specific article dedicated to the right to stay, where we will propose actually to bring forward really what the needs of regions in terms of attractiveness and how actually basically territorial strategies can help deliver the right to stay. So perhaps the most important piece of information of my presentation now is to say that the call for evidence that is currently open is not going to close tomorrow, but we have decided to extend the deadline for an extra week. So the final deadline will be the 12th of June, midnight, and we very much look forward really to your contributions and the contributions of many stakeholders. So if you can, please do disseminate the information that the call for evidence is still open, to really hear from you what works, what doesn't work in your respective areas of competence, what the needs of the territories and the regions where you come from, what these needs are, and how do you think that the European Commission and the European institutions can add value to what you're already doing on the ground. Voila, I think that's my last slide, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think many people is clapping, not just because you've been doing an excellent and very focused presentation, but also because you saved some sleeping or gave sleeping time for a lot of people who will be basically waiting for today's discussion to finalize their submissions before the deadline tomorrow. So it's good that we're going to have the 12th. Of course, there's a double risk with that because then people relax. So I think we're going to do certainly AEDL a bit of a push to make sure that on the back of this meeting, people feel inspired to contribute as many people did. I would like to give the chance because there was a public presentation, but it's not that normally that easy to get somebody who's actually drafting the ideas, having a dialogue with them, of course, because we're busy with the actual work. So I wonder if I would like happy to take some questions from the floor. Of course, this is a work in progress, so Diletta probably not provide some answers, but perhaps some initial reactions. So I wonder, I cannot see everybody there, but if anyone would like to raise the hand or through the comments, please do so, and colleagues from the team alert me if that's the case. I don't see, surprisingly enough. Well, if not, I would like to make a question or just to confirm something for everybody understanding, because people like, certainly me, we talk about cohesion policy and things like that, but this is not only about cohesion policy. So my question is that at least in an ideal scenario, at the end of the consultation and the strategy, there will be, of course, perhaps some more fleshing out of the concept based on the feedback of colleagues to flesh out the draft proposal, the NRPPs and the supporting guidance that will come eventually. But I suppose there will also be a concerted effort to try to modify some or improve some other elements of the EU policy, be that competition policy or transport policy or other areas. I mean, that's a bit more what I think. So while you think of that, I think we have another reaction, which let me see if I just saw at the same time. Well, and since that's actually quite clear, Leonora is asking as well whether the right to stay will dwell on the attractiveness. I mean, not just allowing people to stay, but actually maybe people keen to go to places. It's not necessary. I think it's important to say right to stay, not just to right to stay where you were born, because maybe for whatever reason it's not possible. So basically the right to choose where you think you can do and to at least make policies to help you, or the environment, the enabling conditions by you to actually exercise the choice. But anyway, if you would like to comment a bit further on the attractiveness element, but also what might actually happen beyond competition, beyond cohesion policy in an ideal scenario at the end of this, when this strategy is presented later this year. And Diletta, for yours.
Yes, very quickly. I mean, this is a European Commission strategy, so DG Regio is in the lead, but typically the lead DG also works with all the other DGs, and so the effort will be, of course, to identify other initiatives and actions that contribute to the right to stay beyond cohesion policy. I can, of course, not speak on behalf of other colleagues of the Commission, but this is basically the method and the approach that the European Commission follows when preparing Commission strategies. So, in that sense, the aim is exactly what you say, Serafín. In terms of attractiveness, yes. I mean, all regions are different, and it will be up to the regions and the territories, of course, to decide. They know what their challenges are, they know what their strengths are, and if we know that some regions already have are making efforts and have strategies to attract talent, to re-attract their own talent, to retain the talent. So we think that by enabling the conditions that actually are underpinning the right to stay idea and approach, regions will be better placed to address their challenges, but at the same time become more attractive for talent, for companies, for investments. So the attractiveness as such is for the population, I think, but also for for people coming from outside. Well, we know, of course, that the reasons why people leave, they tend to change depending on the age groups. So that's also an important element to take into consideration.
I have a couple of questions, and one relevant, which is the issue of right to stay work. And I'm pretty sure, and I know very well, there's a few friends of mine who are lawyers and will do submissions about discussing whether a right, understanding EU law, and whether a treaty of all can be understood as a right or not. I mean, I think will be some contributions, and probably you already received some, about how we can understand right in the context of EU policies, because of course it's not a constitution, it's a different setting. So if you have any comment on that, I know this are still early days and you always need to work things out, but if you can actually comment on the issue of how the word right is understood, at least from the time being, in the cohesion, in the consultation process, or the conceptualization of the consultation process. And I also take the chance for Marta, our president, mention something complementing our earlier question, which is whether you will expect there will be potential to have an interdepartmental structure of coordination for the right to stay, the same way that there is like housing task force or other things, or whether that's on the cards, or maybe not yet. I mean, anyway, I understand it's internal plans of the Commission, maybe too early days to do that, but since the question was put forward, I'm happy to relate. So please, Diletta.
Yes, so I mean, the Commission took ownership to some extent of the concept of freedom to stay, as I was saying, developed by Enrico Letta, and in this ownership move, if you want, developed the idea of a right to stay, but it should not be intended, of course, from a legal perspective, but more from an opportunity and policy perspective. So not from, of course, it's not enshrined in the treaties nor in any regulations with the communication that will accompany the strategy is a non-legal text, in the sense that it doesn't develop new obligations for the member states. So I think that we can look at it more from a content point of view rather than the form, if you want, concept point of view. In terms of what will happen in terms of implementation, I cannot say yet. What I can say is that as for all European Commission initiatives, an interdepartmental structure has already been created, precisely for the reasons that I was telling you about before, Serafín. So we do not know yet what's going to happen later, but we do know, of course, that in the NRPPs, and the NRPPs are not just going to be solely about cohesion, we know it, they're going to embrace a number also of dimensions and policies. So the idea of facilitating the integration of solutions and on the ground across policies is very much enshrined with the idea of the right to stay. So in terms of how this is going to connect with the long-term vision of rural areas, this is very much work in process. Of course, smart specialization strategies are extremely important from a regional perspective, because they allow the regions, of course, to identify their strengths and the weaknesses, and create also value chains that connect various dimensions and clusters, if I may simplify. So to be figured out yet how to do that in practice, but these are all elements that contribute to delivering the right to stay. And then there is a very long one comment that I cannot read while speaking. So if you can help me.
No, I think and I thank you for actually reading that directly, because I think you seem to read them better than I do. I just struggling to find. I think thank you for the reactions. I think it's being honest about what we know and what we still need to work out, and that's why, as some people mentioned in the chat, it's important people bring ideas, solutions, understandings, or misunderstandings, because sometimes if you are through the consultation, you are able to see that people is understanding what you're trying to say, the same you are doing, you can actually make sure that that's addressed in the consultation. I think we're going to leave it here, because we also, particularly because our next speaker, Cristina Guarda, has another meeting in the parliament, right, like in half an hour. So I'd like to give her the time as well. I very much appreciate Diletta for the contribution. Let me now briefly introduce the segment, right to stay, a view from the European Parliament. We say a view because, of course, the Parliament is a diverse institution, and therefore we cannot have all of them in an hour, but I believe Cristina Guarda, MEP from Italy, the Green Group, is a very authorized voice, because she's been rapporteur on the vision of the role of cohesion policy in rural areas and many other things. She's been tabling a lot of proposals on the next NRPP on the issue of right to stay and related. So I'm also very thankful for you to come today, because I know the week is packed with a lot of meetings precisely on the future of cohesion policy, the NRPP, the performance framework. Agri Committee, big meeting yesterday with REGI and also, so very much appreciate Cristina Guarda, MP, for having to join us. I would like to, I'll leave you to provide some initial reaction from your side. I have a couple of questions here, but maybe you'd like to provide some reaction on how you think the Parliament is seeing, broadly speaking, the right to stay as an opportunity. How is the feeling in the diversity of the Parliament about how this strategy might actually help improve local areas? And then perhaps we'll go with a couple of questions, but perhaps an introductory opening from you. Thank you very much for joining us, Cristina. Thank you.
I thank you, and I thank you also, Diletta, Zonta, for this first analysis about what is going to do the Commission about this theme. And I really thank you, Serafín, because you inspired us a lot about this theme, and thank you very much. I can tell, obviously, the whole European Parliament reactions is we didn't really have the opportunity to have a proper debate about this theme, but obviously I can tell you about my reaction. Of course, it's good that we talk about these, and I come from a rural area, so the question is very close to my heart, and I've been working on how to maintain public investments in these areas since I started my political activity 11 years ago in the regional council of my region. And it's good that it is recognized at EU level. Governments across the EU have forgotten these places, and the people living there are struggling. And this is this approach and this lack of approach has created a geography of discontent, fueled the far-right votes. So this is a very big opportunity to show that the European level can do something for these people also. So, however, I am also skeptical about the real impact that the strategy will have, and I fear that we will witness again what happened already with the vision for rural areas. It came after the battle for the budget, lots of promises, but very few concrete deliveries. And it would be very, very bad if the EU promises something, it has to deliver then. Otherwise, there will be a backlash. So we can't wait for the strategy to be published. I'm really curious about it. And we have to start to work now to make sure that there will be money that member states will do their job. And this is something we need to set in the regulation for the next MFF. It can't be done through a non-legislative strategy. In the meantime, we have to define what we mean by right to stay, what kind of stay we want to see, what kind of development for these areas, so that we can use the money to do some meaningful programming at member state level, at regional level and local level. I think all this is missing at the moment from the Commission if you think of the debate we are having on the budget. All the renationalization, the mixing of funds, it doesn't look like something in line with the right to stay. So good that we are talking about it, and that's in the agenda, but we'll have to do a lot of work outside the strategy, and we need to guarantee funding in order to support this type of approaches and energies.
Thank you. I mean, as you can see, we are doing a diverse perspective. Not all the sky is blue. We have like a very nuanced dialogue of different perspectives. So let me go a bit deeper, since we are a bit critical here, because you're being, in a way, preparing the ground with your report last year on, particularly in the cohesion policy rural areas. So you've been having a lot of discussions. And apart from your political and personal experience coming from a rural area in Italy. So my question is, based on that prior work, what do you think could be or should be the key priorities and enabling conditions to shape the right to stay locally? Because what can be done in terms of public policy or the whole ecosystem to actually allow people to take informed decisions based on that prior experience of yours? Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. So I work as a rapporteur in the opinion in Agri Committee, and then as a shadow rapporteur in the REGI Committee. And I want to say, since the beginning, we put it on the table, the necessity to have a clear guidance and not only a good wording, put it on some documents. So first of all, I want to say that we need to make some changes to the NRPP proposal, because we cannot only talk about this. We need to guarantee funds for all regions, because also my region, that is a developed one, needs to be supported in these strategies, because we have rural areas and places where the quality of life is lacking, is not enough. We need to create less competition between beneficiaries, and we need to strengthen the partnership principle and multi-level governments, and give clear role to for regions and so on. So these are the main changes that we need to do in the NRPP proposal. But I feel that we need to work in order to show political presence in that places by guaranteeing essential services of general interest, first like healthcare, education, housing, transport, social and community services. These are the baseline without which nothing else can work. Then we need obviously to work on the economic diversification, making sure there is ownership for the people who live there. Tourism can't be the only option. We have obviously agriculture, but also bioeconomy, and also IT, digital, energy, renewables, local and quality jobs. We need to create these kind of opportunities and to put funding in order to deliver, to make people be able to deliver it. We need obviously to put a special attention on young women, vulnerable population, and we need to take care about this part of the community in a very special way, because they are, maybe women are the ones that are creating and shaping the future of rural areas, also investing a lot and choosing to be there, but they are the less supported. Then I want to add something that I feel very deeply. We need to support the creation of sense of community, because it is not enough to guarantee only services and to the delivering of services. But we need to improve the opportunities for citizens to create connection, to create collaboration, to imagine together the future and build relationships and alliances. There are some tools that we can boost in order to create this framework, like, for example, communities, cooperatives, energy communities, projects that I supported when I was a regional councillor, that I proposed when I was a regional councillor, and I feel it is very important to recognize also at the EU level. And then we need to create enabling conditions, place-based flexible tools. One-size-fits-all models have failed, and territories are different, and implementation must reflect that. Capacity building for local administration, because we have many small municipalities that cannot simply absorb EU funds without support. And this is not a detail. It is a condition for equity. We cannot keep pretending otherwise. Then the participatory governance. The right to stay must be built with communities and not for them. Local actors, including women, young people, minority groups, must be the ones steering the projects. And all this has to be combined with clear directionality and political administrative will at EU and national level. Decentralizing is good, but we need directionality. At the end, I want to share a reflection on rural proofing of all EU policy. Cohesion alone cannot do this. Every major EU initiative must be assessed for its territorial impact on rural areas.
Thank you. Well, I mean, you covered already in a stretch a lot of the questions. I think there's some questions on the ground, but let me. Well, I mean, but you definitely cover a lot of the things that I believe also the Parliament will be expecting when the proposals will be announced. There will be reports, I'm sure, and that's important to have, not just the funding, but all the other elements. I think it's very important what you said. I come from a rural area. I spent 3-4 months a year there. Is the perceptions, and sometimes you give the funds or you give that, but if the stereotypes are replicated, and that's something, of course, you cannot do easily in public policy, but it's something that we should never forget, that sometimes perceptions is as important as providing support. Another issue that you mentioned as well is the issue of rural proofing or territorial impact assessment. There's been a consultation recently, a communication recently on better regulation, and I mean that was just setting some asks. But perhaps one of the things, and I definitely encourage colleagues to look at on the back of Mrs. Guarda comments, is to look about territorial impact and that can actually be operationally done. I know Arek Asemetis from Estonia is here. Maybe like to comment on that. How we actually do territorial impact assessment that works to make sure that we just don't put priorities in the wrong places. I think Benoit Casorla from SGO Europe is here, and I appreciate you're about to leave, but at least we take a question because there has been quite quick on the mark. So Benoit, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for that time and for these exchanges, and thank you very much, MEP Cristina Guarda. We already met, and you already participate in one of our event at the SGA Europe level when it comes to freedom to stay. So thank you very much for the support. And we also met with Diletta Zonta a few weeks ago, so we had the opportunity also to exchange a bit on that. So SGA Europe is an organization representing services of general interest. So that was very important, and thank you very much again, Cristina Guarda, for that. To mention that essential services and services of general interest are at the core of that freedom to stay, right to stay strategy. We are working with Enrico Letta since the beginning on that. And we created also a coalition on the freedom to stay that I would like to promote a bit here. So I will be quick and short, but I will share with you the link to our website. We are trying to coalesce organizations, companies, local government, around that idea that the freedom to stay should be everywhere. So the strategy is the first step, but we need also that freedom to stay to be reflected in the NRPPs, in the MFF in general, but also in the anti-poverty strategy, the action plan on EPSR. So all the transversal big initiative that are planned at the EU Commission level. So that's the first promotion, and I would have one question for Diletta, maybe about the Eurobarometer that was mentioned in the call for evidence, if you have a date or something like that around the publication, and for MEP Cristina Guarda, more about what will be the outcome at the European Parliament level. Will it be like a report or a work on that right to stay strategy that will be following the publication at the end of the year, or is there anything where we can also support? Of course, as you know, we are at your disposal if you need anything. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I can quickly answer because I need to go to a delegation that I need to chair. So I'm so sorry if I ask if it is possible to answer immediately.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. We've been running the clock, but I think we will follow that up by email. I would like to appreciate your contribution, your very thorough contribution. I appreciate. Thank you for making the time, because I know it has been a particularly busy time. So thank you for this, and I will see you. We will hopefully see you soon.
Oh, thank you. I have a few minutes if you want. I can answer to.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Thank you. No, because the question is very important, because yes, there will be a reaction from the Parliament, an INI report on the right to stay after the publication of the proposal from the Commission. So we are obviously going to work on this. I have to admit, I'm sorry if I stress on this theme, but I feel that now we need, and this is the perfect and most important moment where we need as Parliament to work on this right to stay strategy and so on, because it appears in the NRPP proposal, but as it stands, it is only a political declaration. We'll have to operationalize it. I'm sorry. And to do it, I believe we'll have to work on two levels: the NRPP regulation and the performance framework. On the NRPP side, the first thing is to define it and to anchor it legally. And I think the best way, and it's actually your intuition, Serafín, is to use the concept of degree of urbanization, including also functional rural areas, not just administrative boundaries, so that territories facing depopulation, service gaps, and housing pressure are actually visible in the text. Including urban, rural, and peri-urban together is also a way to avoid competition. We need to invest equally everywhere, and right to stay can be a reality also in urban context. Then the right to stay has to be mainstreamed across all investment objectives: clean transition, digitalization, transport, housing, demographic change. And we can also think of a spending target for rural and minimum allocation for territorial investment tools like LEADER and ITIs, but it can become counterproductive if member states treat it as a box to tick and stop investing once they hit the threshold. I believe it's more relevant to force member states to use the money in these areas and invest when and where it's needed, and they must demonstrate at programming stage how their allocations contribute to reduce rural-urban service access gap. That's also the role of performance regulation, where we should include, and I'm amending it in this direction, including targeted indicators like number of people benefiting from measures by degree of urbanization, and apply them to key investment fields most critical for rural livelihoods: water, housing, healthcare, mobility. So we need a granularity so we capture infra-regional disparities, and I already propose amendments about it, and we obviously need your support in order to boost it. Last but not least, and I'm finishing, we need to and we must increase administrative capacity for smaller municipalities or association of municipalities to be involved and to absorb projects, because the very big problem is the lack of opportunities created by the lack of people that can work on this theme in the municipalities. Obviously, it's a lot to do, but I feel that we can do it because we are on the same page through the different groups but we need to be serious. We need to create the tools and not only to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. On that one, no, thank you very much. I think as we have a few extra days to submit, I think Cristina Guarda is giving you elaborate ideas on granularity, capacity, rights, and else. So yeah, I think people are clever. You will be, actually, we could have thought about that. We could actually do that. So thank you for also helping others inspire and maybe things they haven't thought they actually do that. So thank you very much. I appreciate you have a meeting right now. I think we will let you go, and definitely we'll be in touch. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
I thank you, and I wish you all the best. I'm so sorry that I need to run away. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we move on to we move from Brussels. We go back, well, still in Brussels, but already with interface with the territories. We go to the regional dimension. We have Isabel Castaño, friend of mine, Demographic Change Region Network, coordinator, but also their job is in the region Castilla y León, which is a region with very big contrasts, and where the issue of right to stay is very prominent, even in the public discourse. But today she will be speaking a wider perspective from the view of regions, because the Demographic Regions Change Region Network has been working on this 4 years already, in different instances, and making a number of proposals and discussions with the stakeholders and the institutions. It's a big group, so it's diverse, and the notion of right to stay or demographic change, the notion of even decline is the difference. It's a very diverse Europe is, and that's why we thought, as we cannot have all the regions, the same way we cannot have all the MEPs, we thought Isabel would be an ideal representative to actually help us understand how regions, the territories themselves, perceive this agenda, and also in the diversity, because it's a plurality of perceptions on that, and this is a very novel concept, so lends itself to various interpretations. So I'd like to take the more time, because it's slightly delayed. Without further ado, Isabel, the floor is yours. I believe you have a presentation, so hopefully it all works. Oh, perfect. Perfect going. Thank you. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
So yes, thank you very much. Isabel Castaño, Policy Officer at Castilla y León Delegation. It's not, as you said, by chance that Castilla y León is dealing this network that now gathers more than 30 European regions. And the Demographic Change Regions Network was already created in 2006. So I realized yesterday, preparing this, that we are 20 years old. Well, Castilla y León joined a little bit later, but the founding regions gathered together in 2006. So it's quite a consolidated network and growing one. So it started with 10 European regions, and now, as I have just said, we are about 30 regions. It's a very informal network. The secretariat is managed by Castilla y León, and we work mainly with Brussels-based offices, not only, but it's mainly a Brussels office network. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. So I have just said, created in 2006, and how do we work? So we try to gather together to exchange information about what we regions are doing in the field of demographic change. We try also to contact the European institutions a lot. The European Commission, Diletta, and her team knows us quite well. Also European Parliament, and also other stakeholders like think tanks, OECD, which is a very good partner of us, and other organizations. Okay. So the Demographic Change Regions Network could not help not participating in the call for evidence for the right to stay strategy. We have prepared a contribution. We have gathered inputs from 15 regions of our networks, and we have divided it into 2 parts. So in the following slides, in the following minutes, I will give you the main guidelines of our strategy. The strategy will be presented, will be sent to the European Commission. We had foreseen to send it today after this workshop. We didn't know there was an additional week, but I think we will send it today or tomorrow. And it will be published. Once it is sent, it will be published also in our website. So I come back to our contribution, 2 parts contribution. We have decided to make this. The strength of our network is the regions and our experience in the right to stay. Because even if we didn't call it the right to stay before the Diletta report, we have always been working on the right to stay in our regions. Regions in the Demographic Change Region Network are regions. A lot of us are peripheral regions, very rural regions, regions that were identified in the Harnessing Talent platform and plans as regions at risk of being in a development trap or already in a development trap. So we thought our main strength is to show how we are living this right to stay and what are we already doing to overcome the needs and the barriers to the right to stay. So in the first part of our contribution, we have identified 8 headings, and we have defined the need, and we have tried to find examples of our regions overcoming these barriers. The 8 headings are retention and attraction of talent, attractive business environment, access to essential services, digital infrastructure and skills, transport connectivity, affordable and quality housing, culture, leisure, and intergenerational solidarity, and a final wrap one, integrated territorial strategies. So let's go to the first one. So the one we wanted to put it the first is retention and attraction of talent. Lack of talent weakens local labor market innovation capacity and reduces the demand of services. What do regions think that can be done to make links between education training and regional labor market needs? Incentives to stay or return, to create remote work hubs, and to develop mentoring networks, among others. In the document we are going to submit, there may be some other examples, and we have gathered 10 regional examples for this part. I am just going to very, very briefly present you one. Is the GPS project in Thüringen in Germany. What have they done? They need skilled workers in order to keep growing, but they also have the problem of immigrants. So they have tried to put it together, and they are offering immigrants training in language until B2 diploma, training in values, and of course training in fields where the region is lacking skilled workforce. So this is only one very example and very, very quickly presented, but just to illustrate you how the document is structured. Next one, please. Second topic for us, important topic, is attractive business environment. Without employment opportunities, residents, especially young people and highly skilled people, are going to leave. That we know, we are experiencing this in our regions. Castilla y León is really a territory that knows that well. So what can be done? Incentives for business creation, especially in sectors aligned with local strengths. Provide advisory services and financial services, mainly for SMEs. promote intergenerational renewal, and also promote women's access to business. Okay, one of these we gathered 9 regional examples. One of them is the Business Buddy program in Ternava. What they have done is that they are going to provide a buddy, an advisor, a mentor to any micro entrepreneur that wishes it, and they are going to receive an 8-month mentoring and support program. And this is very much linked to the sectors that are very important in the region, such as food, agriculture, crafts, tourism, and IT. Next one, please. Next one is access to essential services. We have just heard 2 important interventions, Cristina Guarda and another intervention on the importance of essential services. Without quality public services, such as health, social services, and education, people relocate elsewhere. They are not going to stay. Or if they stay, they will stay by necessity, but not by choice. So what have seen in the regions that can be done? Incentives for rural health professionals to attract them, provide remote services, for instance, telemedicine or teleassistance for social services, coordinate health and social services in a coherent way. And one of the examples comes from my region is the rural care program, where we have asked people in rural areas if they want to stay at home or they want to go to residence, and most of them prefer to stay at home. So we are going to bring as much as possible health and social services to homes. We are going to help these people to adapt their homes. We are going to name a coordinator for social and health services. For the coordinators has a global picture of the dwelling, of the home that needs these services. Thank you. Next one, please. Next one is digital infrastructure and skills. It's obvious that the absence of digital infrastructure linked to digital skills limits the people's ability to live, to work, to access to public services. What can we do? What we are doing in our regions is investing in high-speed broadband, and at the same time develop digital public services, and at the same time develop digital skills in our populations, mainly in the rural areas. One example is the La Rioja network of digital points. They have developed more than 100 digital points in very, very small municipalities with less than 300 inhabitants. And what they provide is not only free computering services, but also advice for these people in these very, very small municipalities can do business administration demands in the region. Next one, please. I don't know if I have the time to go through all of them. So this one is transport connectivity, the importance to create demand transport. For instance, the on-demand transport example in Castilla-La Mancha. Castilla y León has also an on-demand transport strategy quite wide. Next one, please. Affordable and quality housing, how important it is to have affordable and quality housing in these areas, mainly in rural areas. We speak a lot about the problem of housing in big urban areas, but it is also a constraint when there is no when there is not affordable quality housing in rural areas or small towns. And one example is the zero vacant housing from Normandy, the zéro logement vacant in Normandy, where they have identified vacant housing, and they are providing specific support with lawyers, for instance, dealing with inheritance issues, dealing with co-ownership issues, and they are helping all these people to put back the vacant housing in the market. Okay, next one, please. Leisure, culture, intergenerational solidarity, how important it is to permit people to build strong and resilient communities, and then to foster the right to stay. And here we have gathered a lot of examples in our regions where they put together young people with elderly people, they try to put in place leisure and cultural activities such as the Viernes, the Friday project in Cantabria, where they put together the elderly and the young people on Fridays, as the name of the project says, doing some volunteering, doing workshop, doing different activities for people at risk of exclusion because they are very old, or because even if they are young, they are at risk of social exclusion, come together and bring these bridges together. So this is for, thank you, next one please. So this is for the first part of our strategy. I told you there was a second part where we are doing some recommendations. Can we have the next? Oh no, sorry. Yes, go back, please. Yeah, you were right. I forgot the last one. So we had a final wrapping one is that you can foresee as many activities as you want in transport, in housing, in business development as you want. But if you do not do it in a coherent way, what you are doing is that you are creating gaps and you are spilling resources. So what can we do is to promote integrated territorial strategies, bringing together different policy sectors, foster multi-level governance, bottom-up approach, and promote rural proofing strategies. So Cristina Guarda already spoke about rural proofing, how important it is to do this rural proofing to make sure that any initiative that is taken in the territory is not going against these areas that are losing population. And we have selected a very good example from Extremadura with rural proofing 360 degrees, where they do ex-ante, ex-post evaluation in a kind of circle evaluation on how these initiatives have an impact in the rural territories of the regions, and they are guaranteeing activities with a seal when they are going for helping these rural territories. So thank you. Now, yes, thank you very much. So there is a second part in the document where we are addressing the European Commission, some recommendations of what we think, what we believe the next EU strategy on the right to stay should contain. Our first recommendation is data. Please help us understand why some regions lose population. So we ask for harmonized data, comparative indicators, and a very important claim is that territorial classifications, the one you would like to use to compare in a harmonized way, that these territorial classifications accurately reflect the functional reality of areas, because we are seeing that using some territorial classifications, some areas are designed as urban areas or functional urban areas, but in reality they are rural areas with the problems, with the characteristics of rural areas. Second recommendation is please give us with examples. The right to stay has to be built from the local, regional, national level. But one thing that the European Union can do is that you have a global view of what's happening in all the European territory. So help us to identify and showcase regions that have successfully reversed depopulation trends, mapping these regions, promoting transferable best practices, doing peer learning and policy labs. Thank you. Next one, please. Third recommendation is help regions that need technical assistance to provide with it. Inspired by the talent booster mechanism, pillar 1 and 2, please help regions that are elaborating or don't have or want to improve regional strategies on the right to stay. Let's call them demographic strategies or territorial development strategies. Provide with technical assistance to improve these strategies. Okay, thank you. Next one, please. Fourth, policy coordination. So we call really for a coordination at the level of European policies, or always having a look on the effect on the right to stay. So we call it kind of right to stay proofing, called sectoral EU policies. Make ex ante assessments of what would be the impact of sectoral policies that maybe non-intentionally but can hit this right to stay. I'm thinking, for instance, about the trans-European networks. If we are going to privilege always the volume of passengers, the volume of goods, the volume, and we are going to invest in this access, very, very populated access, or very already actively economic active access, we have to think at the same time if it's not going to have an effect on these less populated and less dynamic territories. Thank you. Next one, please. And the fifth one is concerning the financing framework. Of course, money is not everything, but it's important to help regions that have decided, that have already regarded other regions, that have decided to implement own strategies, to say, well, I have identified these measures that could help my territory, but how am I going to finance it? So Europe can also contribute. And well, the main instrument will be cohesion policy through the national and regional partnership plans. And we welcome very much the specific objective 1.1 in the right to stay, but it is not the only one. So the main one, the most important one, as Diletta said, but not the only one. Also, other financing from other European funds could also complement these regional strategies, could also help to finance the measures that we are going to contemplate in our strategies. And I'm thinking about the European Competitiveness Fund with Horizon Europe. We are thinking about Erasmus, Agora EU, the Connecting Europe Facility, etc. And very, very important, please support smart specialization strategies. They are really kind of motor to dynamize territorial-based regional economy. Next one, please. So let's finish with the conclusion from the Demographic Change Regions Network. We believe that territories facing demographic, economic, or social challenges hold significant development potential. We are thinking about the potential in renewable energies, in biostrategies, in general indigenous resources. So we really believe we have a significant potential, but we need the right enabling conditions to develop the economic activity that will contribute to the European Union's autonomy and long-term development. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, in the first part of the meeting, we discussed the if, and what you have done is a very clear, as the Commission expected, of the how. And so I hope this was inspiring for others who maybe haven't thought, actually, we have a similar initiative there, because notwithstanding the representatives of the DCRN network, I mean, the more examples the Commission receives, the better it is that the strategy will be a substantive one. So I thank you very much, Isabel, for the contribution. I believe that we have to move on to the next level. So thank you for the extensive contribution. I know it was done with the time pressures of the submission itself. So I appreciate that you took the time to work on this for us. So thank you very much. Now we're going to move very quickly as host. We have to something. We have to say something as well as we're working on this. And me and Janne, we're going to be a bit of a double act about our research on this topic over the next few years and some potential pointers again. And now we have, as we have more time for people to go, maybe because they again can be inspiration for others. So we'll be just in a second having this uploaded. So why the right to stay matters to the debate? I mean, I think it's pretty clear, but let me give a bit of an additional a bit of additional background, which is, I believe, useful. And then Janne will provide some quick comments, and being aware because we have 3 panelists waiting in the wings, so we're not going to take too much time. Just to say, where are we coming from? Well, as Diletta mentioned and Cristina mentioned, this comes from, not from most immediately for the Letta report and importance of, and I think quite important, link with the internal market and cohesion policy itself. So EU policies and domestic policies sometimes can be accidentally make more difficult the goal of territorial cohesion and therefore the right of people to choose where they want to live. That doesn't mean you have to stay where you are, because for many reasons you might not be able or even keen to stay where you were born. I would love to stay there even more than the 3-4 months I am every year, but sometimes for whatever reason that's not possible. So it's just to enable people to have at least the possibility to choose where they want to live and to form community there in a place they feel home. And that was the concept of freedom, which is much more open, was redefined, and that's the purpose of this consultation, as the right to stay. And we will see a combination of investment, reforms, public services, education skill, and digital connectivity. And that was what has created a lot of interest. The next slide. But this is obviously the new iteration of a long discussion of decades. I just recall here the Territorial Cohesion Green Paper in 2008, for those of us who are still already around there, which was a long discussion with a lot of interest. And in the end, the results were a very general definition of what territorial cohesion is, which is what you can see here. So we're still, in certain ways, we haven't moved much from 2008. And I think the goal of many of us is to try to flesh out, through the right to stay, ideas that are being in discussion for a number of years and try to turn them into actionable policy instruments. Next slide. As you say, there is, and as important, I don't want to Diletta mention that, I think we should understand right to stay as enabling conditions, not as a constitutional right. The EU law doesn't work like that. However, you might understand the Pillar of Social Rights or the Charter of Fundamental Rights as providing the base. I'm sure that I see some people nodding, for the establishing of minimum essential services, which, and I'm speaking from the previous opinion on the Committee of the Regions on this very topic, that I was the expert, it could potentially be a catalog of basic services to guarantee across the EU. Some countries are working on that, distance of access to service of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, but that doesn't have to be the same across the EU. And that's always a controversial thing, because some people will say there's an issue of national competence or domestic competence, but it's something that perhaps we should be revisiting now. Next slide, please. Again, we are certainly ourselves, we don't see right to stay as an expanded version of the concept of donor to cohesion, which has been formulated in the cohesion report, and I believe is still quite valid, which is essentially to make sure that we don't actually do things, at least consciously, that will prevent territorial cohesion to be realized. Next slide, please. Then there are a number of concepts that is in the back of the map, particularly from Eastern Europe, the issue of brain drain, and now the harnessing talent agenda. Of course, Diletta and her team are very involved in this. That's a way of making a positive spin to the issue of brain drain, to make sure that the enabling conditions are there, so people don't really have to leave in terms of economic opportunities, and therefore brain drain. And there's a lot of work being done at the moment to try to understand how actually these communities that are in the development trap, so to speak, as you can see in the map, can be supported. Next slide. Then this is, of course, a matter that many of you know is very dear to me, because I was the person who drafted the current definition of what it is a demographic declining region or local locality, which is hidden in a recital of the ERDF regulation. That was a great exercise. It's been academically documented. If you're interested, open access. But of course, it was a great, for the first time, there was a paradigm at the European level that defined decline, but nobody used it because it became so convoluted in negotiations that it was too complicated for anybody to use it. So we were looking into, with interest, the 9 cohesion report and the demographic toolbox definition of demographic decline using different criteria. The basic bottom line is minus 7.5% per 1,000 residents. You see this map. This is from the 9 cohesion report. to anybody's surprise, the current proposals are not dwelling on that, again, because there's a lot of sensitivity to these things. But, these are things that we should come at some point to defining what it is demographic decline at the European level, and that by sharing with this. I think we are a far cry from that, but I just highlighted that's one of the issues that we need to define the problem, otherwise we'll never find common solutions. Next slide. Then there is issue, and this is interesting because the Diletta report talk about procurement, state aid, and incentives for localities. We have seen a bit of that in the regional state aid guidelines, the current ones that were published in 2022 and that are in force at the moment. There are certain small areas, in particular in Spain, where they benefit additional support because of they are depopulating nature. But there might be opportunities to do more. I don't think we'll go as far as saying buy local, the same way we are saying as buy European. But in the procurement directive, or actually apparently the procurement regulation that will be tabled before the summer, I bet it's going to be 20th of July. I invite a drink to people have a different date, but I think it's going to be around that. I introduce additional criteria to support local value chains. I think the important, and Diletta said it very clearly, we need to create incentives, but we need to reinforce the power of the Commission to enforce competition policy. And I think that's something that is not sufficiently understood. It's not just making simple rules, it's just enforcement needs to be stronger, and the Commission to be more empowered to police the internal market. Anyway, that is a discussion that will be going forward. Next slide, please. We got colleagues here at the Rural Pact and FameNet and other structures that are very dear to AEDL for obvious reasons. And as mentioned, some colleagues, the long-term vision of rural areas and the new right to stay strategy need to work in sync, because otherwise we might risk ourselves having separate tracks doing similar things. That doesn't mean that the long-term vision of rural areas should be subsumed into the right to stay strategy, but actually the work streams, the new action plan, the new procedures for rural proofing potentially, the current Rural Pact, of course, and other structures, the vision for agricultural food, they need to work together. Otherwise, we might end up the same. And I think if the intention of the Commission at the moment is to avoid unnecessary silos, and I think we should all work towards that. Next slide, please. Access to basic services. This is not a theory. This is just invite you to look into this, Google this. There is a lot of work already mapping out with official EU data to map services and where they are, be functional areas, be distance to basic services. Colleagues of ours in the granular project, and the RUSTIC, which is basically doing final conference in a couple of weeks, been working a lot of that, colleagues from ESPON, OECD. So there's no excuse, there's no data. There is data. We need to actually articulate in a way that can direct public decisions at national and a European level, and in a way that people doesn't feel that it's an affront to subsidiarity, but in a way that are enabling them. Next slide, please. And this is not just saying me. I mean, there's a number of studies on access to essential services from the Commission last year. Transport poverty, the first ever definition of transport poverty. This is quite key for, it's not just defined, it's actually measured, and there's a recommendation since last year that will be quite revolutionary, because it will actually, as it has been to be implemented in the context of the Social Climate Fund, I believe it will have reverberations across member states, because if you got an European standard that says how transport should be available or not, then it's difficult to argue that not to do structural reforms, which the Commission has been asking for many years, on access to services. So this is something I see great potential. I hope that the work on transport poverty works in sync with the right to stay strategy, because the more they go reinforced, the better it will be. Next slide. And now, too much talk to me. I'll leave to Janne for a few lines, and being aware, Janne, that we have people down waiting for us to provide some comments. So the floor is yours, Janne. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As you know, I'm Finnish, so I will be brief. But yeah, I mean, it's been very refreshing already here from Diletta, from Cristina, and from Isabel, that I mean, there is the shared understanding of the challenge we face among different organizations and you know, in Europe, that this is an actual real challenge that we need to try to address, and also possibly to try to find possible opportunities. But yeah, like already today has been told several times, I mean, there can't there cannot be right to stay in anywhere in Europe without having the essential services or the access to the services. I mean, there are several reasons why people might need to change their location. I mean, there might be different reasons. There are no health or schools are being closed, childcare facilities. But the thing, the common thing among every age group, being it the babies to people and middle-aged babies, middle-aged people with families or elderly, that everyone needs some kind of services. There might be different kind of services, but everyone needs the access to services. So there's definitely need the minimum territorial standards. What is needed for to have a that people can live their life where they stay. And also one of the challenge, definitely what's been faced, and is actually refreshing to see that there are the ongoing discussions on performance frameworks, and we need more indicators. We need more qualitative indicators, for example, travel times and affordability, and not only measuring, for example, the amount of doctors in certain areas. There might be a lot of doctors, but if they're not accessible by people, I mean, it doesn't matter that much. Yeah, and also we need targeted support for declining regions. So this is not only about rural areas. We have a lot of cities, post-industrial cities that are facing a lot of stagnation and decline. So it's this is where what much more wider issue than just remote rural areas. And this is a shared challenge for all of us. Next slide, please. Yeah. And transportation was mentioned several times. So I actually would like to use the more broader term of connectivity, because it also includes the digital connectivity and the physical transportation. And I would also like to add that what was also mentioned by Cristina Guarda is the sense of belonging. So there needs to be also the mental accessibility and connectivity with places. I think one person once told me that the more difficult the place is to access physically, the more distant it feels in people's minds. So definitely there needs to be the connectivity of the physical connectivity, so people can access the places. So this goes hand in hand with the services already mentioned. I mean, you need to have the access. First of all, there needs to be a services, and there needs to be the accessibility to the services. So this is also one thing that the transport poverty, what Serafín mentioned in the previous slide, is trying to address. I mean, we have dwindling resources and rising costs of transportation. So definitely something that needs to be taken into consideration. And we perhaps shouldn't really think the new European approach of this territorial mobility. So it needs to be affordable and on demand, and also looking at what solutions we already have, for example, in local level, and also the leverage the rural and urban connectivities. And we cannot exclude the digital connectivity. It's a one dimension, a strong dimension nowadays, in addition to the actual physical connectivity. So we need to keep in mind that digital connectivity and digital accessibility is very important. Next slide, please. Right, and then there's also the thing which will already be mentioned today is the economic viability and the conditions. So there needs to be jobs for people. So we cannot just the right to stay cannot just address the negative impacts of for example the geography of discontact or lagging region, but also we should also be looking the right to stay as an opportunity. I mean, what kind of opportunities it could provide for regions, for example, to create new kind of economic conditions so that the communities can remain viable in long term. So there possibility for a stronger territorial investment strategy, so taking into consideration the SMEs and entrepreneurships, and also social and solidarity economy initiatives, and also the new opportunities we have, for example, in bio-based and circular economy models. But still, we need to have an emphasis on I mean, Europe is aging, so we also need to take into consideration that we need young people. We need to improve women's participation, which was also mentioned by Cristina Guarda, and also supporting aging population, and also, yeah, just reskilling people. I mean, we are developing fast, so that's one condition that needs to be kept in mind. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. And then there is the thing that what could be considered, especially in the smaller villages, the community-led development, so the lags as a glue, which can actually help, especially if you're thinking about the sense of belonging. I mean, they act as very well, as a community initiators in local level. So they need to be, and we definitely cannot dilute the leader and the commonwealth, the CLLD approach in the upcoming mandate. So it's very important because they're doing a lot of groundwork in rural areas. So yeah, there needs to be a more stronger coordination between European, national, regional, local levels, and also I think it should include, because right to stay is all of us. So it should include public, private, and the third sector to find a solution, the shared challenges we are facing. Next slide. Yeah, and just to finalize, because I'm mindful of the time, that we have to look at the funding frameworks, because I also saw the question in chat, who's going to pay for this? So that's a excellent question. And the funding has been very fragmented and focused on administrative outputs. So maybe the right to stay initiative, I mean, it should support definitely an outcome-based monitoring on quality of life, and try to have more granular indicators in NUTS 3 and low levels, just that we can actually measure real things, for example, like real-time monitoring or service accessibility. And of course, we need harmonized rules and simplified this kind of lead fund approach. So yeah, so we need dedicated investments for, and especially safeguard essential services, territorial development, community-led approaches, and shrinking and demographically vulnerable regions to taken into consideration. So that's in a nutshell. So I'm mindful of the time. So Serafín, this is the last slide, so I will give the floor back to you.
Well, we don't want to thank you, Janne. We don't want to over-repeat things that we've said, so we're gonna leave it there and hope it's just for inspiration for others to do as the previous speaker did. But now I think we're gonna move straight to the roundtable. We are very pleased, and we first apologize for the delay accumulated, but we thought that we're going to give people, particularly key speakers, time to explain their best practices, their perceptions. I would like to have the perspective from three colleagues. We work together a lot. Katika from ICCS in Greece, coordinator RURBANIVE Project, Claudia Luca from the University of Bologna, coordinator RURACTIVE Project, and Janne Martinos, Secretary General of the Local Development Network, LDnet. I believe we're going to start with Tina, because as I say, apologizing for the delay. I beg you in your understanding, and we can stay a few minutes, all of us, in this discussion, because RURBANIVE works on smart rural development from the point of view of technology. It's a horizon project that works precisely in urban-rural dynamics. There's not that many of them, and therefore we thought that because the right to stay is not just about rural areas, it's about urban areas and how they relate to the rural countryside, or the semi-rural, peri-urban. Therefore, we thought it was an useful approach to have in this discussion. So my question to Tina, apart from, I'm sure we'll come in detail the project, you can actually provide what you think are the technological solutions, such as those are developed by RURBANIVE, that can perhaps provide the enabling conditions for individuals to exercise the right to stay in the place they call home. So without further ado, Tina, I would like to comment on that.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me here and for giving me the opportunity to listen to all these esteemed colleagues and presentations. I learned a lot today. And even the technological point of view that I bring to this panel, I believe that it benefits a lot from all the theoretical and the policy work that you're doing. First of all, I would like to say that I'm the division leader of ICCS, and I currently also coordinate the RURBANIVE Project. I would say that the significant part of our work is dedicated to rural development, because we do believe that digitalization, emerging technologies, they play a very key role in strengthening the rural areas and mainly the connection between the rural and the urban. So we do use immersive and human-centered technologies mainly in order to contribute to a future where people can actually stay. So it felt very good that you invited us here today. I believe that RURBANIVE can bring some very valuable lessons here, learned from the past 2 years and the next 2 years to come through this project. So as we understand it, the right to stay is not just a legal or a policy concept, but it's also about creating the practical contributions that will allow the people to build a good life and at the same time have a place to call home. So that means that we need to build access, opportunities, services that has to do with mobility, with knowledge, with culture, to help them make the decision in the territory that they have decided to stay, of course. So within RURBANIVE, we do decide technologies and we do develop them in order to help people to make actionable decisions based on the knowledge that they get through digital awareness. So that means that we have chosen enablers that they span across mobility, shortening the value chain, circular bioeconomy, biodiversity, cultural heritage. We didn't choose these domains because they're abstract and we like them. Of course, we do like them, but we felt that they correspond directly to the reasons why people choose to stay or leave. Because people will stay or leave whether they have jobs, whether their mobility works, whether they have access to the right healthcare system, they get knowledge that they need, their children are provided and taken care of. So one of the biggest highlights of the project is what we call the rural-urban immersiveness. And it actually gives the opportunity to end users to experience these technological advantages, even though within the 4-year span, they are not able to experience in another way. So we use technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality to be able to help citizens, both in rural and in urban, to be able to visualize a world where mobility works, systems are connected, their systems are resilient. So I would say that for me, for us, this technological contribution to the right to stay is possibly threefold. I mean, first, we have to understand and make visible all the local challenges and the opportunities, but then we have to help the communities participate, and they can participate when they can make the right decisions, and they can make the right decisions when they're fully aware of what they're doing and where they aim to go. So our aim is actually to support this evidence-based planning. We aim to support all the policymakers. We aim to support all the citizens to make the right decisions based on what they need. So it's not just a fact of digitalizing for the fact of digitalizing, but we want to give people more agency, more opportunities, and more confidence, so they can facilitate their right to stay in the place of their choice.
Thank you. I mean, I think, and I would just say also watch this space, because a lot of the things that Tina was like doing pretty early has been developed at the moment. Some recommendations as well on this, and I think that can actually be helpful as this strategy takes flesh, because there will be a lot of technological solutions that are simply not considered, and I think this project in particular will bring that. So thank you, Tina, for that. Now let's move on to a different take. Smart rural development, but from the point of view of social capacity, social innovation, social capital. This is something that the RURACTIVE project has been working a lot, and there's actually now intense phase of preparing policy recommendations. There's a RURACTIVE forum in a couple of weeks. I'm sure they're going to be put here in the chat for those who like to actually have that specific discussion with the project. So my question to Claudia as the coordinator is, what are the things in terms of the social capacity, the social innovation that the RURACTIVE project can actually contribute to the right to stay in terms of that particular aspect of this right to stay discussion. So without further ado, Claudia, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Serafín. Thanks for the invitation and for the opportunity. I would like also to thank you very much the previous speakers, as many of the things that they also noted down, I mean, are very much in line with the approach that RURACTIVE is following. The first question I would say when I received this invitation was more to think about when we're speaking about right to stay. First question when we think about people is like right for whom? Because of course, if we refer to different groups, to different communities, to different regions, I mean, of course, these change quite much. And as well, like while we were also starting drafting the recommendation, as Serafín mentioned, another thing, I mean, that is very much in line with what was mentioned so far is related to the fact that the right to stay concept must somehow, let's say, include the possibility, as it was mentioned already, not just to stay and remain, but also to move, to leave, to return. So to create the condition for people to have the freedom to move, not just the freedom to stay, and to come back in case they want, or to go in another place in case they want. So I think this is also very much important. And when we think about the right for whom, of course, I mean, one of the topics that we focused very much in the project were related to the different demographic issues, so related with elderly, with children, young people that would like to leave. And that's quite much about women that we learn throughout the process. I mean, data says that women leave more than men from rural areas. So there are some studies, mostly in Spain, actually. So maybe, Isabel, it's something that you are aware of, about this masculinization process of rural areas. And in terms of demographic changes, that's very dangerous. Because, of course, if women leave, it's very hard to think about building up families and having children and building up families. And in terms of then, like, what kind of services we would like to give to whom, it's not just about job. Women leave because there are not decent conditions of culture, because there are still a lot of stereotypes, because there are still a lot of issues in having a children in these areas. So that's really, I mean, something that if we want to take seriously the demographic issue, we have to put women at first. So to give them the right to stay, if they want to, in a favorable environment, let's say. Before it was mentioned about as well in terms of social, and it was mentioned something about data, and I do agree that data should be harmonized, but data should be disaggregated. One of the issues that we had very important, I mean, granularity was also mentioned already, but it's not just about granularity. One of the issues that we had where we wanted to understand which were the people that were living in the territories where we are working with 12 different case studies. It was mostly that, I mean, you can have the number of people, but you don't know like the demographic of the people, like gender, you can know it by municipality, but in some cases, I mean, that doesn't help at all. And if you want to work, and that's one, of course, of the main pillar we work, that is participation and inclusion. If you want to understand who is doing what, you don't have those data disaggregated nor per gender, nor per age. So we really don't know who is participating. And that's one of the main things that we actually cared very much, working with our territories. We are not just coordinating, but we were also leading the part related to the, let's say, co-development of the strategy, meaning like the participation that happened in all of the case studies. And we were very, let's say, tough with our case study in terms of the way they have to report us data. Because we need the participation is not just a tick, so to say, okay, we did it, and inclusion is not just, again, another tick, okay, we did it, or we have been trying to do it, but it should be proved, meaning that we did have quota in some cases. So a number of women that have to participate in let's say, the local task force, so that is the managing board of the project at a local level. There should be a number of people participating in this board that are coming from groups at social exclusion. And these embedded and supported like real and true inclusion into the participatory process of the project. And at last, I know we are very late, so I'll try to close very fast. One of the pillars, I mean, in RURACTIVE, we work on tourism, energy, mobility, agriculture, I mean, all the things that I've been mentioning already, so I'm not going to go through that. But we do work on 3 cross-cutting priorities that we try to tackle all together. And the 3 priorities are climate change, biodiversity, and social justice. And the idea is that we have been trying also with some citizen science and some participatory approach to work over raising awareness on climate and biodiversity, again, for all. Because if we don't make people aware and if we don't create capacities for people to understand what is going to happen with climate change and what is going to happen with biodiversity loss, that's not going to be social justice without climate and biodiversity justice. And this is something that I think, also the right to stay has to very much care about. Most of the ecosystem services that the urban areas are using are coming from the rural areas. So people should really be aware about the richness they are providing to the rest of Europe. They should be caring about it, but they should also be paid back because of that. So I think that payback mechanism and things to somehow revitalize this area should definitely be included there as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very rich. But one thing I would like to highlight, because we've been looking at that several times, is the segregation of data for gender. Sometimes the data exists. It's just it's not put there. We're discussing in a different venue with some experts, some statisticians. And sometimes the data is there, even at European level. It's just has not been put there. For instance, the performance framework, there's a great merit to make some changes to actually make just the segregation. So, a lot of the things for just intervention is big, radical changes. Sometimes it's just actually small changes with big impact that can be done if just done in the right way. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to move to the last commentator, last but not least. Because I think we put Hannes at the end because Hannes has been working 40 years in economic development in the UK, in Greece, in administrative level, in governmental level, as an expert, co-author of several studies for the European Parliament and many other institutions, and in addition to many other academic roles, as well, Secretary General of LDnet, which is a group of network of experts on local development, very, very active, and with whom AEDL collaborates a lot. So for all the reasons, you've been there during the creation of cohesion policy, the famous third cohesion report, the Barker report, Regions for Economic Change, the Green Paper on Territorial Cohesion, Harnessing Talent, and so on, the Sustainable Urban Agenda. So you can provide us a bit of a sober perspective about what is new, what is not, and even if it is not new, what actually can be done, this strategy, moving forward based on that long experience and also the path dependencies that policies at EU and national level have. So without further ado, Hannes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Serafín, for giving me the opportunity to take part in this discussion. Very interesting, very challenging. And lots of relevant things have been said already. So I'll try to be brief and reflect, first of all, on what seems to be almost a consensus. The understanding of right to stay seems to be shared very effectively between the different contributors. And I think we're moving almost to a consensus position there. Where we don't seem to be at all settled is what is the strategy, what sort of strategy is what is likely to come out of this process. And there we can reflect, comment, but we have to make some hypotheses. So when you ask what is or likely to be really new in this new situation, I would say it depends very much what is the strategy. Is the strategy a sort of new policy objective with its own policy instruments or using existing ones? So when we look at that, what is clear is that we have already quite a full range of policy instruments. We've got policy levers for addressing essential services and investments, skills, jobs, entrepreneurship, governance, capacities. So I would say the main areas where we should be focusing in terms of adding new instruments will have to do more with innovation. We had just an example from Katika. And the big question mark put down by Cristina Guarda about more funding, or clearly adequate funding for whatever is being advocated. And my reaction to this sort of scheme of things that could emerge is it's not so much that what is new, but how we go about it. And in the context of CLLD and LEADER, we have already quite relevant instruments to use. The local development strategies, the partnership approach, etc., is the way to bring together this type of wide range of possible interventions and try to make sense out of them and try to reinforce them. And I think this is the right direction. Integrated territorial strategies were mentioned also by Isabel Castaño. We need to build in what is available to creating more effective local and regional ways of operating. But there are also limits to what the local answers can be. And this is particularly relevant in the case of remoteness. Remote rural areas will not be able to rely on local solutions only. There will be issues of main urban centers, and the remoteness penalty needs to be addressed and overcome. And here, in a way, it is a challenge. How do you go beyond the silos of different policy instruments? And you have the NRPPs almost appearing as an opportunity, although they tend also to be a sort of black box at the moment, and not at all clear how they will manage to bring a more integrated approach together. Now, if you go beyond the idea of strategy as an objective and policy instruments, you need to, if you see it as a sort of test of policy delivery, a snapshot every few years of what's happening, you don't need really to wait for an ex-post situation. And you need to think of positive outcomes, and keep in mind that it is necessary to have a sound understanding of what these are and how to achieve them, and a sound conceptual framework underpinned by a theory of change or an appropriate approach, and the right tools. We've heard a lot about good practices informing. So you need to have this in place in order to be able to check as you go along different stages of the process. And there I would say that it's very important to simplify a little bit and establish that the realization of right to stay choice for young people, young women, particular groups, depends on the intersection of capabilities and opportunities. So individual measures creating capabilities, they need to have also opportunities being created and available. And opportunities being created, they should be addressed to people who can make the most out of them. So it's very important in the next period of MFF to keep the performance regulation in mind and try to explore how best to use it, and it will be relevant for the right to stay if we're going to see achievements. I'll close by saying that perhaps the main new thing about right to stay is the fact that it seems the case that we have a realization and recognition of the enormity of the problem called to be solved by the right to stay. We're talking about a third or so of the population of the European Union being in a state where things will get worse, they're getting worse, and we have not only this extent, but we have the dynamics of unfavorable trends and prospects, and the cycle of decline in the demographic and economic terms could get worse. So the fact that has been recognized, I think, quite explicitly and broadly is the new thing. Because when I looked at the ninth cohesion report in the summary on the website of the Commission, it was a bit lighthearted. Regions will have to adjust to a shrinking labor force and aging population, it said. The challenges tend to be more acute in rural and thinly populated regions. Well, the challenges are enormous, and we should make the most of the well-established tools and try at least to get the best possible out of a more systematic, more integrated approach using CAP, cohesion policy, and the many other instruments available. That's it.
Thank you, Harris, and I appreciate that it's always hard to come the last. And I'm surprised, given that you've been at the long, that with being critical, you've been relatively positive that we could do something out of this. And I think that one thing we should be realize is that, and should be proud as Europeans, that we are talking about this. In most other parts of the world, this is not even discussed, let alone a policy agenda. Basically, it's assumed that the decline is there, people should be in megalopolis, the countryside abandoned, urban areas and the interaction between them, in a basically scale basis. We are actually thinking to granularity here and sensitivity, which is, I'm afraid, not something that the rest of the world should be doing. And perhaps if this strategy goes right, will be a good example of the so-called Brussels effect, that our good things in Europe can actually be inspiration for others to adapt to their own context. I'm super aware of the time. I very thank and apologize to the panelists for the delay thing, but I thought it was useful to have your perspective, much more rich than what I could say. I don't know if there's any last intervention comment from the floor. Some people ask, so I'd like to know if anybody would like to take the floor. I think Marta was maybe keen to do that. I don't know if she's still around. No, I don't see any call. Well, I mean, I understand that we are.
I'm here. If you're looking for me, I'm
you're here. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. So I think you have some critical understanding on a personal capacity. So maybe we can conclude with that before we ask our colleague from ELIF to do the final closing.
First of all, as president of AEIDL, my usual task is to close the event with some nice words. So, and it comes from my heart. So it was really a good meeting, interesting and fruitful. Thanks for all who contributed and also the organizers. The second thing is that I participated in the RURACTIVE event yesterday, and today I had the feeling that it would be good to organize a webinar when these two kind of thinking, DG REGIO, DG Agri, are together. That would be a next step. And regarding comments, other people don't know, but I worked already 25 years for UNDP, developing the most disadvantaged regions in Europe and out of the European Union too. And when I heard first this nice wording, the right to stay, it's really something very positive that represents all those things that we want to see in future European policies. But in the same time, I have just very briefly 3 questions. What happened with those Eastern European Roma communities living out of system somewhere? They love the place where they live, but do we want them to have the right to place there? And do we want to develop that area to be able to have a real home there? That's almost impossible, I think. Or the other option, that some bad political influence creates ghettos in that places, in saying that they have the right to stay, so we keep them there and that's all. The second question is about the local, the localism and the local cohesion in some communities. It can be so strong in some countries, including mine in Hungary, where the local communities decide to create and ask the contribution of the national legislation to be able to stop people moving into their village, saying that we have the right to stay, and if people come here, they will increase the price of the properties will be increased, and our children cannot stay here because they cannot buy the more expensive houses here. And they, in general, they don't want to hear about the mixture of different culture in the villages. So how can we manage this problem in the frame of the right to stay? And about the funds available. So that, for me, it looks a very nice idea to provide the right to stay with all the necessary conditions in each region and village of Europe. But from the financial perspective, I don't see a time in the European development periods in the close future to have enough funds to be able to provide the necessary, all these necessary conditions to the equal right to stay. So maybe the aim is nice, but going to the details is very important, and harmonization with the rural development strategy and policy, I think it would be very helpful and important. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the sobering thoughts, which is important as people will finalize and have an extra week to provide their submissions. And to think all these variables, including the things that maybe are not so positive, and we need to avoid misunderstandings and define a concept that actually works. I'm going to leave it there because I know that for many people it's lunchtime, but I would like to hand over to Julen from the ELIF team to provide with the closure on what ELIF will be doing next, and the possibility for keeping that conversation in future occasions. So without further ado, and we'll leave with that, Julen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Serafín, and thank you to all, especially our speakers today and our president, Marta. It's been really, really nice, actually, to hear from all of you. And I will be really brief, as Serafín was saying. I know that it's lunchtime for many of you, and I don't want to take your time. So we've explained what ELIF is. So it's this space where local ideas are shaping Europe. And today's webinar, I think it's been the best example for that. We were coming from different regions, different countries, with different ideas also. But there are always like-minded people with whom we can start thinking and shaping what we want for our future and the future of Europe. So first of all, we would like to welcome all you to the forum, because after registering to this webinar and in relation with our privacy policy, you are already part of the ELIF community. Let's say you are members of the forum, so you will have access to all webinars, activities, and everything that we do within the forum and within the thematic communities that we work on. Especially, I would like to introduce you the initiative that we have called Expert Voices. I hope that my colleagues, they are going to be sending some links to the chat so you can access. It's an initiative that we've been running for almost a year, in which we interview different experts in different topics across Europe. But for you to be more tangible, let's say, and to see some numbers, we are talking about a forum with more than 2,200 members across more than 60 countries. And they are all EU member states represented, the 27th. So, and as Serafín explained at the beginning, we work in 3 different thematic communities. And I will show you some, for example, of the recent activities that we've done within these thematic communities. So we have today's webinar, of course, but on the 12th of March, taking into account that it is also declared the International Year of the Women Farmer by FAO. We did a webinar on gender inclusive policies for farming and rural areas, and also these people attending on to the gender webinar have been invited also for today's, because we really think that it's important to have the gender perspective also in the right to say strategy. And in another thematic community, in this case, the one on CLSI, community-led social innovation, we also feature some Horizon Europe projects. In this case, it's the Serigo one, and on the 18th of March, we did webinar together with them on aging in rural areas also, what is how it is to better connect communities, especially elderly people, in this case in rural areas, which is also something significant, and something that we've heard today about intergeneration, and it's pretty much related. So I don't want to take more time. I would like to thank again all the speakers and all attendees. It's been really, really nice, and we've gathered many of you. So here you will find a QR code that you can scan, and it's really important, and we really will value your insights on this webinar. It's a really brief evaluation form. You can scan it now. You also have the link in the chat, and if you would like during your lunchtime or even after in a break, you can do it in 2 minutes. It's a really straightforward form, but that will help us a lot in shaping next webinars and events within the forum. So basically, one last time to thank you. You have also all our social media accounts in the chat. You have here our email address in case you have any questions. We will be really happy to answer you. And yeah, I will give the floor back to Serafín. And that's all on my side. Thank you so much.
It's all me to say thank you very much for those, many of you still around now, so much appreciated. That's one of the most popular sessions we have done, and I will see you soon. You will get an event report where a lot of your contributions, particularly those who were not able to speak, will be integrated. We're also developing a new analysis on Right to Stay, will be published in a week or so. So you also receive that as you register to this event, and of course we will hope to continue conversations with you moving forward, as well as for individual projects as you have seen highlighted. So thank you for all, and have a good lunch. Thank you.